The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Vicki Matranga of IHA's Innovation Theater and Smart Talks Educational Programming. Thank you for joining us today. All of these programs are being recorded and will remain on our website. During the program, you can enter questions on your chat function if you like, and we'll have questions at the end of the program. Speaking with us today is David Hernandez, the co-founder and managing partner of Lotus 823. An award-winning integrated communications and marketing agency specializing in home and housewares, smart home, consumer tech, and lifestyle clients. With more than 20 years of leadership experience in both retail and marketing, David's passion and creative energy underscore the collaborative culture of Lotus 823. He has been a TEDx speaker and is also a professional musician who has worked and toured professionally. He is speaking with us today from New Jersey. Thank you, David, for sharing your expertise with us today. I'll be back for questions at the end. Go ahead, David.
Vicki, thank you so much, and thanks to the Inspired Home Show and IHA for allowing me this opportunity to present today. As it says on our first slide here, we're planning for the unexpected, and boy, talk about unexpected. Think about where we are in the world right now, and think about what has transpired since the coronavirus has started. We are now faced with challenges that we never ever thought we would have to deal with, and it's important to understand why we need to have a flexible plan in place. So in the wake of the coronavirus, everyone in every vertical pretty much has been affected. With many brands, it's been an unsure ride. I know with our clients, we've had clients wondering which way to turn to, and in the end, what we realize, what the fallback is, having flexibility, and this is something that we have always had in place for brands for different reasons, except this is on a much bigger scale. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the screen here. So the first thing to think about is having a flexible strategy. And what does that look like? We look at 4 key elements. Number 1 is content. How you're going to position your brand throughout the year based on seasonality and based on, of course, your products or services is a typical way to lay out your marketing strategy. And under normal circumstances, most brands are going to focus on promoting, unity among family and friends, tying to holiday celebrations and event promotion, etc. But it's important to recognize how your brand positioning may change given the current events that are happening now and that could happen in the future. So focusing on creating content that your consumers can enjoy while staying home, highlighting e-commerce capabilities if you have them available, or directing them to your Amazon page. These are all key elements that should roll into your content strategy. Another key area is advertising. And I know for our work with our client partners, in many cases, we have ad strategies that are built out 3 months, 6 months, a year in advance. You may have a similar situation. Think about product launches, sales, promoting events, attendance, etc. But with the production delays and cancellations that are forced on all of our businesses, you got to shift strategies. So think about ad copy that before we talked about, visit us today or book now. It's just not relevant any longer. You have to think of a backup plan, and you have to have a variety of copy where the call to actions have relevance to the reality that we're living in right now. The next 2 are events and experiential marketing and pitching. And I want to take a second to talk about experiential marketing, because in a lot of cases, and again, clients included, focusing on a trade show may be their biggest element of their year to set up their sales, their media placements that they're looking for. Just thinking back on the cancellation of the Inspired Home Show and the impact that that's had on many of our clients. You have to consider what that means and what are you going to do in terms of a communication strategy with your constituents, your stakeholders, your consumers. And if it was an event that you guys were putting on yourselves as a company or as a brand, you have to consider that perhaps you may want to communicate to them about the postponement or even a refund, and do it as quickly as possible, and then stay in constant communication with them and assure them of what the next steps are. Another element that to us is key as an agency is the entire ecosystem of media outlets and journalists and pitching from a PR perspective. When you think about public relations, it's heavily focused on the latest trends, the time of year, product launches. So many times we have built out plans that are tied to pitching angles that are tied to things like travel or right now, the spring and summer season, holiday celebrations. Now, when we're creating a pitch angle, it's crucial to understand how, under these new circumstances, you're going to pitch. You have to pay attention to that audience. Those journalists are not going to be writing with the same type of seasonal angles that they were writing about before, given the circumstances of the crisis. So what do we do? How do we adapt? And while this has put everyone on unsure footing, you gotta think about, well, what can we do? How do we stay engaged? And how do we work with our constituents, with our consumers? First and foremost is to think about altering your brand messaging. You want to start offering content that really reflects their new lifestyle routines. Think about trends that include fun activities. Think about family activities at home, productive behaviors to practice while under quarantine. We have a client that recently launched a series of music classes, music lessons for beginners. Find ways to bring value to those constituents and those consumers. That's going to leave a lasting impression on them as consumers. And that's at the time of purchase, when they are ready to purchase, they're going to think of you first. And also, if you have an e-commerce set up on your website, use this time to highlight it and make offers available, whether it's free shipping or a coupon. This encourages not only the purchasing, but it's also a key messaging of, hey, stay at home, you can get it safely online from us. And while you're doing that, you should think about content that you can share with your consumers on any issues that might come up because of delayed shipping. Speak to safety and let them know that you're following CDC guidelines at your warehouses. And when you look at some of these images that we've put up here, these are real world images of how these brands are looking to be relevant given the spaces that we're in right now. If you're running ads, clearly you have to change your ad strategy. We put up this data point here because we think it's critical. Facebook has a 70% increase in usage across all apps. That's just during the month of March. This is an optimal time to be targeting your audience. If you had planned to promote an event or a launch, you may have to change the call to action to be more relevant given the circumstances we're in, but you can still promote your products. And you can build that momentum in your ad strategy by focusing on the things I mentioned before. Shop online, free delivery, same-day shipping. Did you launch an Amazon store? Focus on your Amazon store. In this example here, Walmart's Google ads are very much targeted to letting their customers know that they are being careful, that they're giving them the information that they need, whether it's videos on YouTube for safety and self-care, or letting them know about no contact pickup and delivery, or the change in store hours. And when we talk both on the agency side and with our clients about return on investment, right? What's the ROI on my ad spend? Look, I agree, it's a top priority, but right now, engaging with your target audience is one of the most powerful things you can do, because that leaves a lasting impression, even in the midst of a situation where maybe they're not ready to purchase. And then consider virtual events. If you had an event that you were planning, it was postponed, or maybe it was canceled, there's an opportunity to present a virtual event. You think about all the software out there. I'm pretty sure everybody that I'm speaking to at some point in the last couple of months has been on a Zoom call. These are easy ways to get back in touch with key constituents, whether it's speaking with buyers or setting up an event that can impact your customers. And consider when you do that, if you're reaching out to a wide audience, leverage social media. Use social media and incorporate event hashtags on Twitter and encourage the conversation surrounding your event. This is a way to let them have a similar experience that they might have had in real life, but at least they can do it now virtually. And taking a minute here, I want to circle back to the pitch angles and having those timely pitch angles. This is something that we're working with on a daily basis with our clients. And just giving you these few examples here of what Forbes is doing, or Taste of Home, or Livingly, clear examples of how we can stay relevant and still maintain engagement even during a time of such incredible crisis. Your products, whatever your services are, can they provide a value or solution to your readers who are staying indoors? And then think about the messaging that you're going to build around that. You want unique messaging that's going to create compelling reasons for those writers to pick it up and basically give you those editorial opportunities. So just a few ideas. Think about quarantine crafting, learning a new skill, recipes for the family, at-home workouts. We know from being on this side of the business, on the PR side, these are all top trends in media right now. And if you have products that can fit in there, then go ahead and pitch them, whether it's you're using an internal person or your agency partner. On another note, if you're not relevant to be able to do any of that type of pitching because your products or services don't fit, then you may want to consider in sitting this out and using some of our other tactics that we've already mentioned. We list out a few other best practices here, and out of all of these, I really feel that fostering transparency is the most important. Keeping customers in communication. This not only allows them to understand and not have confusing messages about the brand or the company and what you're doing, but it creates a personal touch. And it's going to remind your customers or your stakeholders that your company is composed of real people, people with feelings, people with similar struggles. You want to continue to provide information about the products, yes, and your service, of course, yes. You want to let them know about availability. But tied to all of this, and through all of this consistent communication to them, is the importance of letting them know that you are a company that's made up of real people. And also consider maybe making an official statement explaining how you're keeping your employees and customers safe, and at the level of the warehouse, shipping, and your offices. This is going to leave your audience with a great feeling about you as a company and as a brand, and it's going to clear up any questions that they may have or misgivings that they might have of how you're dealing with the pandemic. Asking for consumer feedback. We have an example of Kate Spade's What Do You Want to See From Us? User-generated content has proven time and again to be one of the strongest elements a brand can leverage. But along with that is engaging your audience for content that they want to see from you. Ask them, poll them. What kind of things do you want to see? Use the platforms. Go to Instagram, go to your Twitter accounts, go to Facebook, and get from the audience, from your stakeholders, from your customers, what type of content. This is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it allows your followers, the audience, the consumers of your brand to have a voice to you and communicate to you. They're going to give you input that's going to be great because it's going to be things that they're actually looking for. And it also shows that the brand actually cares about creating content that the audience is interested in. And along with talking about content is evergreen content. If you don't have one, you should have an evergreen content library. Start working on it. This is a great tool that we use with our clients, and it's something that is, like the name says, evergreen. It lives in perpetuity, right? It's something that we can reach back into our inventories of the brands that we're working with and reshare things from the past. And if you're a small business, you may not be able to create new content because your store is closed or you can't get to new products yet because of supply chain issues. Then use repurposed content. This is going to keep you top of mind with your consumers, and it's going to reconnect them to what you're all about. And speaking about reconnect, stay connected. It's important that you interact with your customers. That connection of staying in touch with them, of sharing relevant, useful content, all of that makes an enormous impact on brand loyalty. I wanted to share a few more tips that we think are critical during this time. And one of the top elements that we talk about is, what's your visibility like? What's your digital footprint like? If you haven't revisited your SEO and what your keywords look like, maybe this is a good time to do it. If you haven't looked at the entire user experience of your website in a while, maybe this is a great time to do it. It's crucial for your success. You've got a search engine that is outrageously dominant. You know, Google is essentially 93% of all organic search visits for the United States. So you have to look at that as an incredibly vital and important element of brand visibility. Knowing your search rank on the most popular search engine is critical. Use this time now to optimize your site and improve that consumer experience. If your website is dated, this is a great time to do a website redesign, something that is made for today. It's completely responsive, so it fits every screen size. You make sure that it's highly optimized and it's using all of the best improvements to website design that allow for a great user experience. If you haven't, as I mentioned earlier, looked at keywords, it's critical to go into that and understand what keywords are relevant for your customers that are going to be searching for products like yours, and for prospects that are looking for products like yours. This is going to make a huge difference in your online visibility, and investing this time in the strategy is going to make a difference for consumers when they are in the buying mode. Because if you have a site that's modern, that's easy to navigate and easy for them to get to purchase, it makes a huge difference. And if you have a site that's highly optimized, that means your visibility is going to be where it needs to be. Alongside of that is, if you haven't done an email marketing strategy yet for your brand, you should absolutely consider it. Consider that 59% of most marketers see that as their biggest source of ROI, using email marketing. You have a customer database. What are we doing with that customer database? We should be communicating to them. We should be telling them about deals. We should be sharing information about the company. All of these elements are critical in not only staying in communication with your customers, but letting them know when and where things are available for you. And if you're not using call to action, then you can still use it for relevant content. There's plenty of great templates out there. There's plenty of opportunity for you to set up different forms of A/B testing different email campaigns and seeing which subject lines work better. If you're not doing it, you should. This is not a huge expense. And if you're not sure how to do it, working with a partner is very, very doable. And again, not expensive from an agency standpoint. Think about reevaluating and revamping your company's core values. Our core values to us are critical because it really helps us define our identity and our culture. And I think that's true of every company. So maybe this is a good time to encourage your employees to take some time to think about the morals and practices that make your company unique, make your company yours. And once you've established that and you've updated them, I think this is a great time to create graphics and share them through your social channels. This is going to remind people, again, of the reasons they enjoy being your customer. These are incredibly easy things to overlook because we all tend to focus on the business of the business. And these things may seem like soft touch, but when you think about how customers engage with brands now, we think they're highly important and actually critical to understanding how brands become brands for life for consumers. So what have we been talking about? Essentially, this is all about pivoting your strategy. And I'm hoping some of these data points and these takeaways have been helpful. Now that you understand these things, I think you can understand the importance of having a flexible plan. I know a lot of what I've talked about has to do with the pandemic, but in reality, life doesn't go as planned a lot of times. The pandemic has really brought that into sharp relief for all of us. But when you think about a post-pandemic life and whatever that new normal is going to look like, there's going to be other things that can come up to disrupt the plans that you have in place from a marketing standpoint, from a product launch standpoint. You need to have flexibility built into your plan. So be prepared for the unexpected and then design a strategy that can be adapted, something that will allow you to change course at any time. Thank you very much. I will now turn this over to any questions you guys might have. Again, I appreciate everyone's time here today. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, David. That was a very calm and reassuring way to go through the points that you outlined there. Thank you for that. So we do have a few questions. I'll start out with this one. In the home space, where are you finding that the media is most interested at this time? Should everything have a COVID-19 angle, or is it safe to pitch other story types?
It is safe to pitch other story types. It doesn't all have to be about COVID. And certainly we've seen from our experience that pitching products that are still relevant during this time. And what I mean by that is, like, think about cookware, baking. These are all relevant during this time of stay at home. And you don't necessarily have to pitch it with a COVID angle. You can just pitch it for the properties of what that product is in those spaces, because it's automatically relevant, if that makes any sense.
David, I also have a question from the audience.
Yes.
What do you mean by SEO? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. I probably should have taken a step back then and not, I'm so used to using the shortened versions, you know, the jargon, right? That's called, SEO is the short version of search engine optimization. And basically what that means is you are optimizing through the use of keywords and phrases your website so that the visibility of your site for those relevant keywords that tie to your product or services are being seen by the search engines and then being picked up so that you gain visibility and move up in rank. Ultimately, what you strive for is to be somewhere on page one of any Google search for a relevant keyword or term. Let's use that word instead of keyword. Any relevant terms that relate to your product or service. The old joke is, where do you bury a dead body on Google? Put them on page 2, because nobody ever looks beyond page 1. So when you're building out your strategies for your website, SEO is a key element, and it comes in the form of different types of content that's used on the site, including using specific keywords throughout the site and in your content that you build into the site. And hopefully, when you do that, you're thinking about having a content strategy for your site to be putting fresh new material on in the form of maybe a blog on your site every month, because Google rewards that. Google sees new content that's relevant to that particular company, and they say, oh, this is new, and this is something that would be of value to people looking for this. We're going to reward it, and basically it pushes it up in the rankings.
I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Can you speak a little bit more about Amazon marketing?
Sure. Amazon is now the other 800-pound gorilla. It's a triple threat. It's a retailer, it's a vendor, and it's also a massive advertising platform. It's so big that I think it's only second to Facebook in terms of actual ad dollars that are being spent on it. Amazon marketing, if you're not on Amazon currently, you should strongly consider it if you're a product. And there's many ways to do that. The most controlled way is by having your own Amazon presence and having your own Amazon branded store, and then building that store out with proper content. More than 90% of searches for a product are started on Amazon. When people know that they're looking for, a multi-cooker, they usually start on Amazon. They may end up somewhere else, but they're going to start on Amazon. That is a huge opportunity. It's also a huge challenge, especially for young brands. But there are ways, and we do this in our agency every day. We work with clients that are not all of our clients are household names. Many of them are startups or small to mid-sized brands, and we help them optimize for Amazon. That means optimizing the content for their Amazon pages, as well as building out an Amazon ad strategy that doesn't break the bank, that's intelligent, and that helps them get found, because it acts just like a search engine, just like Google does, get them found for keywords. So when somebody types in, multi-cooker, we have a better shot of getting to that prospect's eyes, because we've built out an intelligent ad strategy that ties to those keywords, and that we're competing for those keywords for that client.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Then back to me. I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Is that okay, David?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So how often should brands be changing their creative and ad copy? Would you suggest weekly, daily? What do you think is the sweet spot?
So that's a great question, and there's basically a few different ways to look at that. Fresh content from the top level overview, the answer is yes, all of the above. If you can be putting out fresh daily content, that's great. If you can't do that, then do weekly. And if you can't do that, then you'll just have to live with monthly. But typically, it has more to do with what sector you're in. So if you're a consumer-facing brand, which I'm going to assume most of the folks that are working in the home and houseware space are consumer-facing brands. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You're going to want to put out content as often as possible. That content not only keeps your current customers engaged, your current community engaged, but it's an opportunity to gain new mind share with new stakeholders, new prospects. More is not just more of it. More can be better. Now, the only other caveat I put in there is that the content has to be valuable. you have to be able to deliver content that's meaningful. It's not just content that says, buy my product. It's got to be content that is something that's going to bring value to your customers, and that's yet somehow is still relevant and relates back to the brand.
I do have another question that just popped in.
Okay.
What is your opinion on the use of influencers?
Let me think how I'm going to answer that. So, because my first response, and it's the true response, is I think influencers can be a great benefit for brands. However, there's an asterisk, and the asterisk is you have to have an intelligent approach to that. So when we talk about influencers, you're talking about a very vast ecosphere of people, from the mega celebrity influencers, the tip of the iceberg, Kardashian type influencer, all the way down to micro and nano influencers. And, we do this with brands currently, especially in the home and houseware space. We look at what's the brand about, what does the audience look like, and then we set about curating a group of influencers that we're going to engage with for the brand, and then manage what those engagements look like. So that's the big asterisk is, yes, it's great, but you have to have a strategy, and you have to go in there with hopefully with a partner that has some experience working with influencers, so you get return on investment. Because it's very easy to fall into a trap where you think, well, they have 50,000 followers, and they said they'll post something about me if I send them a sample. And all that does, in all actuality, it may just mean that you just gave away a piece of product and got almost nothing from it. You want a strategy built around that, and you want that done in a manner that's going to be relevant with influencers that are going to be relevant to your brand. Whether you're in the baking space, whether you're in cookware or in cleaning, there are a vast ocean of players out there in the influencer space that can be what I would call a bullseye, because their audience is essentially an audience that would be highly interested in your products. The other thing is that it can be very economical. You don't have to spend those hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for one placement from a celebrity. Working with highly engaged communities of influencers that are what we would call nano or micro influencers can be highly effective, not expensive, and can absolutely drive new traffic, new eyeballs, and new purchases.
Okay, and one more question. How would you recommend implementing different forms of marketing for an integrated approach?
Well, the first thing we would do is look at what the brand's overall footprint is and where their customers live. It's all about where are our relevant eyes, right? We don't want everybody. We just want the people that are going to be most interested in being a constituent, right? Being a consumer, being a customer, and being part of our community. And then building out the plan accordingly. For example, we may want to focus, if it's a demographic that skews slightly older, on blending a blend of not only certain types of influencers that speak to those audiences, maybe some public relations, but when we look at social media, maybe we're looking at Facebook more than Instagram. Even if we're doing both, we might lean harder on Facebook, just because you have an older age group that is naturally attached to Facebook. And then we would look at building out an integrated cross-platform approach that allows us to deliver up content to these prospects, to these would-be stakeholders, and start engaging with them and bringing them into our community. And then within that, we would build out sort of sub-strategies that tie to things like, well, we need to, it's a new brand, so we need to build community. We don't really have an audience yet. So there are things that we're going to do, that we're going to build into our strategies and into our ad strategy to help build that audience and bring them into our fold, whether it's giveaways or contests or what have you. And then there are, as we expand our audiences, building out a relevant, fresh content calendar that continually changes up and brings value to them while blending in the calls to actions that we want to bring in. All that is tied to one unified strategy that also, again, using the example of a young brand or a new brand, we want to use some public relations too. Why? Because we want to build some equity for that brand. So it has some reviews, it has spotlights from an editorial standpoint that speak to the brand's product or their innovation through these objective third party, which would be media outlets.
I have one, excuse me, I have one more last question, David. When you spoke about best practices, I was particularly intrigued by your mention of evergreen content library development, and that sort of relates to the question. During this time, are there other ways that you might suggest companies could enhance their brand?
So the reason, by the way, and I hope I was clear on this, the reason I brought up evergreen content is because in many cases right now, brands are stuck. They can't get, a company can't get to new products, or a business owner can't get into their stores and can't create new content. And that's why reaching back into it can be so helpful. But I think the biggest piece about when I talk about ways to bring value for a brand to its audience is having those touch points of humanity that bring out the human side of the brand and make the brand three-dimensional, and not just a logo selling products and here's another product. That's why we also brought up, when we talked about content, we brought up things like talking about our core values, or talking about the struggles that we're facing as a company, and letting you know what we're doing for our employees, what we're doing for you in terms of safety. All of those elements are, to me, that's the gold that ties a consumer to a brand and makes that consumer a consumer for life of that brand, right? That they look at that brand as now beyond products, they're a trust agent.
I see. Well, it's great that we had such an engaged audience today with all these questions. It's been delightful to continue the conversation with you, David. So I guess we're close to time here, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your insights with us today. I know Lotus has a lot of clients in our market area, and you definitely have the pulse on our industry right now. So I just wanted to thank the audience for joining us today. All of these webinars are recorded and remain on our website, theinspiredhomeshow.com. Check our site for the schedule of upcoming presentations. Thank you again to David and Lotus 823. This is Vicki Matranga saying thanks and for joining us today, and we'll see you again next week with our following programs. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vicki.
Bye.